Hey everybody, this is Perch. If I'm forecasting the future here, I get asked this from time to time. This isn't a viewer mail, but it's just something that people would ask me, both in the comic store and all the time. It's, do I think that comic books will return to the glory years of, yesteryear, of the 40s, pardon me, it's late, the 80s, whatever it happens to be. That was a big old yawn that I'm not going to edit out of this video. That's the production quality you came to this channel for. Um, sorry. Do I think that comics will return to these kind of heights that we've had? And most people, they know the answer to that. The answer is no. But my answer is actually yes. I think comic books will have a resurgence, a reemergence. I do think they will. Now, let me caveat that a little bit. I don't think it will be the same any more than the comics of the 40s and the comics of the 80s were the same. Things had changed in that model. And I do think that comic books will have its popularity boom again, but I don't think it will be the same kind of popularity boom. I don't think it will be the same format. I'm not going to speculate on whether it will be print or digital or anything else. But I do think that comic books will have its moment, its big moment in the sun again. And I say that for kind of one core reason that a lot of you may disagree with. If you watch Netflix, if you watch any kind of streaming service, one of the indicators from Netflix is the idea of binge watching, the idea that you get so hooked on something that you stay up all night watching the whole thing because you want to know how it turns out. This is human nature. There's a drive in humanity to want to know how things end. I remember seeing a TED Talk at one point, and the person was speculating that if people had the ability to kind of various superpowers, fly, super strength, kind of different things, and one of the powers was to see the future, that most people would pick being able to see the future. And the premise of the TED Talk was that it wasn't that, the person is thinking, I could see the future and then know the right stocks to invest in, I'd be a millionaire. It's that there's a human craving, a human desire to know how things turn out, that we just inherently want to know the end of the story. It's why spoilers are such a big deal, where people, they want to control the story, but they're compelled to want to watch it first to see how it works out before they're just told. People want to know how things go on. Comic books, at their most powerful, have strong cliffhanger hooks, have this ability to kind of pull people into the story that they want to see how that journey plays out. When I say cliffhanger, I don't necessarily mean last page like, oh my God, who shot Superboy? I mean just this draw. And remember when the original Secret Wars came out back in the 80s? They did this thing where, the comic books are there for the month, and then the next month things are different. In the Fantastic Four, suddenly She-Hulk's on the team. How did this happen? Why is the Thing on an alien planet? Nobody knew. And Jim Shooter did a very masterful job of creating this amazing hook of, hey, you want to know how this turns out, don't you? Well, you're going to have to read Secret Wars to find out, but you're really hooked. You're really compelled. You want to know what goes on with this story. You want to know what happens next. Comic books has that ability to draw people in hundreds of titles a month. I mean, there are hundreds of comics being produced a month, but comic books has that gift to it. Now, comic books today rarely utilize that gift. A lot of the writers are like, well, we're going to do one and done. We're going to do slice of life type stuff where, the journey is kind of diminished. I saw some interview with the X Office, and I don't remember who in the X Office, but they were talking about how a lot of comic book readers want to have the experience of Krakoa. That's wrong. They do not. Comic readers want to know how things work out, whether it's a cliffhanger or just an investment into a character and a story that takes you to an end point. That's what they care about. I would argue that's one of the most compelling parts of a lot of manga, which is implemented in many ways. The chapter approach that a lot of manga titles use generates that kind of cliffhanger excitement that keep people coming back, time after time. A lot of manga has either, whether it's a rom-com or whether it's a superhero action story, they both have elements of, hey, is Akane ever going to get with Ranma? Is is Deku ever going to get with God? Who's the girl he with? Uraracha? Is that her name? I should know that. I'm now spacing on the name. Or maybe maybe Deku's going to go for Bakugo. Give a big twist in there. I don't know. But regardless, um, that's the romantic side of it. But it's also like, is Shinaraki? Are some of these characters going to ultimately destroy the universe? I mean, there's a lot of different ways that keep you coming back for more. And certainly TV can do this, movies can do this, but movies do it at a much slower pace. TV also, even as Netflix is popular and binge shows are everything else, there's still a big wait. The biggest flaw and problem with binge shows is like you have The Witcher and you watch it and tons of people tune in to see it, and then the season is over. And now we need to wait 2 years for the next season. And then we need to wait 2 years for the next. And eventually the characters age and they have to do different things based on the actors. And it takes away from your ability to continuously tell sequential storytelling. Like I said, the biggest thing that comic books, I think, gave away is their ability to tell these ongoing cliffhanger, get attached to it stories. Comic books seem to almost encourage readers to bail by breaking the narrative, that you do not have to follow along week after week. Following along week after week is what kept them in business. So it was a strange thing to let go of. But I say all this because that gift is still out there. Manga is still using it. Comic books will figure it out too. I don't know about Marvel and DC. Maybe they will not. I have no idea, but somebody will. There are enough comic writers out there, enough publishers out there that remember this gift and this value. And if the big publishers don't come back to it, then somebody will. Whether it's the individual comic writers going to indies, they will get there. So I am very confident that no matter what else happens, whether we're reading it on paper or reading it digitally or reading it, in daily comic strips or webtoons or wherever we happen to read it, I am very confident that in the end, or not even in the end, at some point, comic books will find its groove again, and we will get that huge must-read moment in comics again. Now, again, don't put words in my mouth. Probably a lot of stuff is going to have to change. The business model, the price, all kinds of things are probably going to have to shift in that model, how it's delivered, etc. It's not just going to be, next year, Marvel puts out, who knows, Miles Morales plus Ultra, and it suddenly sells like it did in the 80s. That's not going to happen. But I do believe that the model is going to get worked out. I believe that at some point, comic books are going to have another boom. I'm confident of it. Now, again, who benefits from the boom? If it's the publisher directly or the distributor or a comic shop or some digital platform, I have no idea. But I do believe there will be another boom, a big boom, not like, 6 months of success, but like the 80s again, a true renaissance in comics. I believe it's still out there and it will come. So there you go. I think it will happen. And the only question is not if, but how. And that's probably what a lot of people should be focusing on if I were them. Anyway, fun to think about. Can't wait for that boom. And thanks for listening.